Welcome to the Faith Talks Wood podcast. I'm Will from Fly Woodworks.
And I'm Tom from Mountain Valley Maker.
And we're a podcast about everything from Jesus to joinery, and we enjoy talking about all of it. Tom, so I'm not going to say I'm getting old. However, I'm in my mid-30s, I guess. And since I was in high school, I've had back problems. I played sports in high school, played volleyball, played basketball, was in track, and always had back problems. I'd hurt my back snowboarding years ago, and just have always had back problems. And so just nothing that's inhabilitating, but enough that it's annoying. And I've thrown in a couple of times that I've had to go to chiropractor and do that kind of stuff. And so my back was feeling okay, but then we worked on the property a couple of weeks ago where I spent the whole week cleaning the property, manual labor. You know, I'm in office. I sit behind a desk all day, so my body's not used to that kind of labor. And so my back, I was feeling it the following week, which would have been last week. And my back was bothering me, and it wasn't in my lower back as much, although my lower back did hurt. It was more like upper back in between my shoulder blades because I was pulling on stuff, getting stuff out of the weeds and like just doing all that. And so it was just bothering me. And it was enough that it was annoying, and I was getting ready to schedule a chiropractor appointment for this week. However, craziest thing happened to me. Now, part of it is I think at some point I had prayed to God to heal me. And the other part is just funny. So I get home Friday from work, and our grass is starting to grow, and it's getting tall. And we have about 5 acres worth of grass. However, I don't mow at all. I can't. It's just not worth my time. I mow where we're at around the house, make it look nice. And then some of the field part, I just leave it, let it grow up because I just can't. And so I get out for the first time and jump on the mower. I've got a big commercial grade zero turn. However, I don't have a suspension seat. It's an older one. And so it's just metal on metal for the seat. And so I'm mowing and going through, and the yard's really bumpy. It's here up in Pennsylvania, in same Colorado, it freezes. And so the ground will heave, and so the sod will just get really, really rough. And so I'm jostling around, and my wife and kids are on the front porch watching me mow, laughing at me because I look like a rag doll, right? Just getting thrown around like crazy. And so I get done mowing what I'm going to mow. I just want to get the front yard and kind of the back where the kids play set and all that is. And then we have a path around our orchard that we like to walk. And so I mowed around that. And so anyways, I put the mower away, and I jump off the mower, and I kid you not, my back has never felt this good in like 15 years. I must have jostled it just right. And it's the weirdest thing because I've been to the chiropractor, been going since I was in high school. It always helps me feel better, but it's never like I don't feel great when I leave. And so today we're recording, it's Tuesday. And so Friday that happened. And so for the last 4 or 5 days, I haven't felt this good in a long time. And it's all from jostling that mower. Like I said, I'd ask God, like, man, my back is hurting, Lord. And I tell you what, it's amazing what that will do to you. Because what I found is my energy level is up. Certain tasks that you do, and anybody that has a bad back or has dealt with a lot of back pain, like tying your shoes or even bending down to pick something off the floor or using the bathroom, right? There's certain things that just like it's tense, it's tight, it hurts. And I don't have any back pain. It's the weirdest thing, man. I feel fantastic. And it's just been so, like, I cleaned the whole house yesterday. So I put the kids down for bed. We decided to push recording back to the night. And I looked around the house. My wife was out late at a Bible study thing. I'm like, let's do this. And I don't do that because normally after being on my feet or bending down and doing stuff for so long, my back gets really, really achy. And so I got to just sit down. And I tell you what, like my back aches more just sitting now. And so the more I do, the better it feels. It's the weirdest thing. I've never felt like this in my life. I feel fantastic. And so, yeah, that's my story. I don't know. And it's one of those things. It's like I'm waiting for something to happen for my back to start hurting again. But right now, I'm living in the joy of it because I feel great. I'm sleeping great. It's like I don't know. It's been really good. So, how's your week been?
Let's give Jesus some praise for healing your back. But I could tell you now, every time you start moaning, your wife's going to say, honey, why don't you go cut the grass when you get done, come clean the house. I think you'll feel better.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, my week has been just crazy busy. Did 2 bus wraps, and it's just either been sign work or working out on the farm. I have put in a lot of tractor time bush hogging, but I got the property looking good. I've weed eated it all day today, and I'm whipped. I ain't gonna lie. Been out in the sun all day long, but it feels good. So
now,
yeah.
Do you have a weed eater that has like a strap that goes around your shoulder?
No, I'm short, man. You've seen how short I am.
Okay.
They never seem to I think they make weed eaters for like 6 foot tall people. They are just very awkward. So now every one I've ever had, I take that. I mean, mine has a strap. It just does not feel comfortable to use it.
Right.
So I don't. I take it off, chunk it.
Yeah, I understand. Another thing I did this weekend. So when I had mowed on Friday, I hadn't done maintenance on the mower yet. It needed to just chop some grass down because it was getting so high. And so I was thinking back and telling my wife, I've never sharpened blades on a mower. I've always just replaced them. I've always just bought new ones and put them on. And so I told her, I said, I'm going to take the blades off the mower and I'm going to sharpen them. I've got an angle grinder and I'm going to sharpen them by hand and then change the oil and all that kind of stuff. And so it gave me fits. I tried doing it. I think it was Saturday night, tried getting the blades off. I couldn't get the blades off. And it's one of those things where I was trying to work harder and not smarter. And I actually had to go get the right tools. I didn't have a breaker bar. I didn't have a big enough socket or wrench to fit on because they were inch and a quarter bolts. And so I finally got the blades off. And then I realized, aside from one time using my angle grinder with a wire wheel to clean up a slab edge, I've never used an angle grinder. I just never have use it for what it's for. And so I have a vise out in the barn. I clamped up the blades and I started going to town. And once you kind of figure it out and get that feel, it's kind of like running a chainsaw. Just like it feels like, oh yeah, I'm making sparks, man. This is and I've sharpened a lot. I collect pocket knives. I know how to hand sharpen chisels and all that stuff. So I understand bevels and I understand, how to sharpen and then flatten in the back to make sure you get that burr and all that kind of stuff. And so it's just one of those weird things. Like I took the blades off, sharpened the blades by hand, and then changed oil in the mower. And it's just like, I felt accomplished. It's like what I told my wife is, and some of you guys listening maybe will relate to this. When we lived in Tennessee, we both worked full time. We both had excellent jobs, and we didn't have a lot of time, but we were comfortable financially. And so we would pay people to do stuff because we just didn't have the time. I would always pay people to change my oil in my car, and when I got my zero turn, after the first year of having it, I paid the dealership to maintenance it and do the stuff to it and all that. And now we're down to one income. My wife stays home with the kids. And so things are tighter than what, they were last year or 2 years ago, rather. And so it just reminded me doing that I'm capable, because I grew up working on my own cars. We didn't have money to do anything, changing my own oil. Like all that kind of stuff is natural to me, but I got into a point where I was just paying people to do the work because I didn't have the time to do it. I don't really have the time now, but I'm prioritizing that time better to save the money. I mean, blades are to get a set of blades for my mower. I think it was like $50. And so now I did have to get the oil and the filter and stuff like that, but it's still less than, $300 bill to take it to a dealership to have them do that kind of work. And so, but yeah, just felt good to work with my hands. I sit behind a desk, I work on, computer stuff all day. And so it feels good to work with your hands every once in a while. So, but man, before we get into it, I just want to say thank you to all of our patrons. Really appreciate all the support. And if you would want to support the podcast, you could do so at patreon.com/Faith Talks Wood. There's several levels and everything from $5 a month up to whatever you want to give. And we just really appreciate everybody that supports us. And it just, we don't necessarily want to ask for money, but it is something to see that people care about what we're doing and want to help support it. So thank you for that. Go to Apple Podcasts, give us that 5-star. That helps people find the podcast, and just pray for the podcast. So prayer goes a long way, and we really, really appreciate those that are praying for the podcast. So with that being said, Mr. Tom, it is your Bible time, and what you got for us today?
Yeah. We're going to dive into Matthew chapter 16, verses 21 to 28. Then I'm going to kind of focus in on a few of those verses. So I'm going to read it from the NLT today. Starting in chapter 16, verse 21. From then on, Jesus began to tell his disciples plainly that it was necessary for him to go to Jerusalem and that he would suffer many terrible things at the hands of the elders, the leading priests, and the teachers of religious law. He would be killed, but on the third day he would be raised from the dead. But Peter took him aside and began to reprimand him for saying such things. "Heaven forbid, Lord," he said, "this will never happen to you." Jesus turned to Peter and said, "Get away from me, Satan. You are a dangerous trap to me. You are seeing things merely from a human point of view, not from God's." Then Jesus said to his disciples, "If any of you wants to be my follower, you must turn from your selfish ways, take up your cross, and follow me. If you are to try to hang on to your life, you will lose it. But if you give up your life for my sake, you will save it. And what do you benefit if you gain the whole world but lose your own soul? Is anything worth more than your soul? For the Son of Man will come with his angels in the glory of his Father and will judge all people according to their deeds. And I tell you the truth, some standing here right now will not die before they see the Son of Man coming into the kingdom." It's I love this passage because it really, the one thing that cracks me up about it is how it's particularly Peter, like Peter literally questioned God, and but I think we all do that from time to time. But I want to kind of focus in on a few verses here, starting with verse 23, where it says, "You are seeing things merely from a human point of view, not from God's." And in the world we live in, our minds are constantly persuaded by the media. They're persuaded by social media, by our friends, by the movies we watch, by everything. And particularly, I would say the media and social media, because everybody's sharing their opinion and their perspective. And quite often, none of it is the truth. And so, but it particularly, like you've talked before, we're in an election year, man, people can really get riled up off of things they see off the news where they don't share the whole entire story. They only share a tidbit to get across what they want people to see. And so we look at things too often from a worldly perspective and not from God. And I think this affects how we see money. It affects how we see sex, relationships, work, friendships, hobbies, everything. And so I think so often we need to take a step back and ask God to give us his perspective and to see it from his point of view and not from the world's point of view. Proverbs 13:20 says, walk with the wise and become wise, associate with fools and get in trouble. And this is where who we choose to spend time with, what we choose to watch, the people we choose to be friends with on Facebook or follow on Instagram is so important. And choosing those relationships or that content that points us to Christ, that builds our relationship with Christ stronger versus taking us away from Christ. And on verse 24, it says, if any of you wants to be my follower. And so that's what I really kind of wanted to focus on today, is what it means to be a follower of Christ and what we're choosing to follow. And at first it says, turn from your selfish ways. So that, I'll admit, I mean, that part I probably struggled with a lot. And I think as humans, we're all naturally selfish, but turning away from what we want and giving that up in order to follow Jesus, to do what God's will is for our life versus what we want for our life. Second is taking up your cross and following me, giving up your current life, making that sacrifice, that full surrender, not a half-hearted commitment, is what it means to take up your cross and follow him, to be all in, 100%, and to give up. It might mean giving up a promotion at work or giving up a day around a golf or whatever the case might be, but giving up what we want and we desire in order to go wholeheartedly after Christ and follow him. But in return, when we do that, we find true joy and we gain a life that glorifies God and a life that lasts for eternity, not a life that lasts here just on this short earth. And I just think that the things that we do and the things that we choose to, the people we choose to hang around with, the people that we choose to follow and consume their content affect who we are as Christians. And I want to be all in. I don't want to be a half-hearted Christian. I want people to look at my life and me not have to tell them that I'm a Christian, but them to be able to see it by the things that I do, by the things that I say, the way I treat my wife, the way I treat my daughter, the way I serve at my church. God talks about a generous heart. I want to be generous like God and not selfish like Tom. So what's your perspective on all this, Will?
Yeah, man, that's good stuff. It's interesting. So Peter, with Jesus is right beside him, walking alongside of him, and his perspective is a worldly view, and so Jesus sees that, and Peter says, "That's not going to happen to you," and Jesus says, "Get behind me, Satan." And so there's a lesson there, because there's so many things in our life that we can look at and realize that while they're not inherently bad, it doesn't mean they're good either. It doesn't mean they're edifying. And so there's certain things that you could say, get behind me. I have to move past this. you're not lifting me up, and you're not helping me grow closer to God. And so we're going to talk about a little more of that later with the content side of things. It's so I'll give this example, and we've talked about this in the past, but one of the reasons I don't drink alcohol now, big reason is that I grew up alcoholic parents, and I've grew up in a bar while my mom was whatever. And so alcohol in that sense is I don't have a good relationship with it. However, another reason is people know me. I'm very outspoken about my faith. I'm very intentional about how I talk, about the things I do, because I'm representing more than just myself, right? I'm representing Christ and everything that I do. And so people around me know that. And one of the things that I never want to be is I never want to be a stumbling block. And so what I mean by that is, say, Tom, you and I go out, we're going to go down to the local bar and have a couple of drinks and watch the game or whatever the case may be. And say, Tom, maybe you've struggled with alcoholism, and maybe, it's something that's a burden on you. But I go with you and I take a drink, and me as a church leader and somebody who is serious about my faith. And you think to yourself, well, if Will can overcome this, or if Will can do this, then so can I. And so then you have a drink. And what that does is that puts on a blinder to you, if this were your case, right? A blinder to you, to the issues that you have, because you're looking at me and you're saying, well, Will can do it. And so that's one of the reasons I don't like drinking, because anybody around me knows it's not going to take long for you to find out that I'm a believer, or you're going to see something different and you're going to ask me. And so I don't want to be that stumbling block, and I don't want people to see me and think that it's something that is okay. Now, is drinking wrong? No, there's nothing wrong with it in the context of not being drunk and not having an addiction, right? You want to have a beer or two, and it's a joyful thing. There's nothing wrong with that. It's no different than me having a couple of Mountain Dews, right? in that context, right? And so, but that's the reason why. And so I don't want to become that stumbling block. And so, we have to take up our own cross. And so part of that means sacrificing the things that we consider privileges in order to serve our brothers and sisters around us. And so for me, one of those is drinking alcohol. And with any Christian, the way you talk should be a big one, right? Once you are renewed in Christ and the old is gone, the new has come, your identity is with Him. We shouldn't be dropping the F-bomb. It's not edifying. It's something that is a slander. It's not something that's good. And so with anything that we do, we should be taking up our own cross. We should be denying ourselves some privileges that we would normally have, or the culture would say is okay. And that's the thing too, is that with this culture, with what's going on with, if you read, I was reading, where was I at a few nights ago? Second Timothy, possibly. And it was just talking about, like, in this world, they're gonna want to, turn away from God. They're gonna want to have their own idols. They're gonna want to do all this. They're gonna do that. And I was just like, man, this sounds like United States in 2024. Like, every part of it was like bang, bang, bang. And so it just is one more thing that we need to be mindful of. And the only thing, and we talk about this all the time, that God says that He will give you and give you abundantly, is wisdom when you ask for it. And so every time I pray, I always ask God for wisdom, because, Tom, let me tell you what, man, I can't do it without His guidance, without His wisdom. I mean, some of the decisions that I make on my own behalf are foolish. And so when we have, And the last thing that I'll end out with this is that lens. So it's really important for us, and we don't have a video podcast, but I'm holding up my Bible, that everything that we do is done through the lens of Scripture, and making sure that what we are doing as a Christian in this world is biblically sound. And, you know, you talk about music, and like 95% of what I listen to is Christian music. Every once in a while I'll get on like, oh, you know, I like this old country song from the 2010s or something, or, you know what I mean? Like, but most of what I listen to is Christian. One, I do enjoy it. And two, because I know that garbage in, garbage out, you know, right? I don't care if you're 4 years old or 40 years old or whatever, garbage in, garbage out. And so, you know, we need to be really careful on that. And another thing too, and this gets a little nitpicky, is being careful who you're listening to. Both if you listen to pastors and you listen to sermons, and some of the music. I mean, there's like I'm gonna throw a gut punch out here. I love Elevation. They have good stuff, but some of their theology is what's the word I'm looking for? Not good. And even some of the songs, if you listen to them and you actually listen to the lyrics and understand what they're saying, they're not saying anything inherently bad, but it's not scripturally accurate. And so, you know, that doesn't mean you can't listen to it, but you have to be aware of that. You know, we just listen to like, oh man, this song's so good. Yes, but they say this, and really that's not how we should be thinking as Christians. And so, you know, there's a lot of that. Now, I'm not that nitpicky when it comes to music. I know it. I love Elevation music, their worship music, Bethel, all that stuff. Like I really enjoy it, but I have a discernment for that. And so if I hear something that I don't like and I'm like, oh, that's not what the Bible says, then I'm going to like, okay, start questioning it. So not everybody, and again, not bad to listen to that music. Just be careful. But yeah, good stuff, man. I could rant all day about the Christian life. That's like one of my passions.
Yeah, man. It's just been on, you know, I took the 40-day fast off of Instagram, and it's the best thing I ever did. And the reason being, like, I've spent so much more time reading, like astronomical more time. And I've got more work done as well. But now that, you know, the fast has been over for 2 weeks, it's, there's a verse, in Ephesians that says, let no corrupting talk come out of your mouths, but only such as good for building up as fits the occasion, that it may give grace to those who hear it. And it's just really changed my perspective on putting out content. It's like, if I'm going to make a story or a reel, I want it either A, to lift somebody up spiritually, emotionally, or skill-wise, if I'm sharing a woodworking skill. But to just make content for the sake of making content, just because you need to put content out because that's what the world says you need to do, I don't think I'm going to do it anymore. I'm just going to, when something's on my heart, I'm going to share it. And when I feel like I have a tip or a trick in the shop, or I'm building something that maybe somebody could learn from, I'm going to put it out. But if I'm not just going to make content for the sake of, I'm not going to babble for the sake of babbling, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But
on that, before we get into the topic with Instagram, one of the things I found, I don't scroll Instagram. I just watch stories. And all that is me wanting to keep up with people that I care about what's going on in their shop. I mean, honestly, like, it's hardly ever that I'm scrolling and looking at reels or anything on Instagram. I don't do that. And so, but with that being said, let's roll into what we're going to talk about, because there's going to be some, probably some controversy that I'm excited about that people need to hear on this topic. So you want to go ahead and intro that?
Yes. With following Jesus being on my heart this week and what to talk about, I wanted to roll that right on over into, Facebook calls it friends, Instagram calls it followers, YouTube calls it subscribers. All of it means the same thing. Who are you following? What type of content are you following, and why? And so I wanted to kind of talk about what we're following, who we're following. Maybe we can't name every person that we follow, but how we choose who we're going to follow, how we choose who we're not going to follow, and why. I've kind of got a couple different categories of how I choose what I'm going to watch and how I choose what I'm not going to watch. But I'm going to share a verse that kind of lays the foundation for this. In Matthew 12:34-36, it says, "You brood of vipers, how can you speak good when you are evil? For out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. The good person out of his good treasure brings forth good, and the evil person out of his evil treasure brings forth evil. I tell you, on the day of judgment, people will give an account for every careless word they speak." And so I want to go back to and be that follower of Jesus, not the follower of the world. But this is so important of what we watch and what we consume, because what we put inside our heart is what's going to come out. And so I want to fill it up with good. And let's dive into it. So how do you go about choosing who you follow on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube?
Yeah. So, mine varies. So we could talk woodworking. And so on that aspect, really it's entertainment and knowledge. And so, Bourbon Moth, Drew Fisher's a good friend. I love his content. He makes phenomenal content. I've unfollowed some people I won't say that I met at Workbench Con that were less than desirable character wise. And so I've unfollowed people. I just don't follow their content anymore because of that. So clean content is important. If somebody says the S word or drops this or that every once in a while, it doesn't bother me. But it's more of the slander joking that I don't like. So there's some podcasts that I stopped listening to because they're just crude and I don't think it's manly. I think how they talk is childish. And so I don't consume that. I don't think that's edifying at all. On Instagram, I mean, there's I really enjoy following Mike Coffey. Not a believer, but he's a phenomenal woodworker and he's got really good business sense. And so I just appreciate his input and outtake on the business side of things. I'll follow who else do I follow? I watch a lot of stories. Now I'm blanking. A lot. Like I said, I don't follow people for their posts normally. It's all stories. So just kind of like what people are, talking about in their shop and how they're keeping updated. John Malecki, I like his stuff. He could be kind of foul mouth, but it's not. How do I say it? It doesn't bother me. He's local to me. He's close, and I just appreciate his content and stuff. So yeah, on Instagram, I haven't been doing as much on there as I used to. I kind of took from you, Tom, and kind of just eased back a little bit. So yeah, I mean, obviously, some of the people we've had on the podcast, Aaliyah Parker, and some of those people. Funny enough, my recent content intake has not been woodworking. And so recently I've been really, really deep on Bible translations, different Bibles. And so there's 3 Tims. If anybody's interested in Bible translations, Tim Wildsmith, Tim Frisch, and Tim Nichols. They're 3 guys, all have different YouTube channels and Instagrams. And so I've been like watching them and following them. Like when their stuff comes out, I'm watching it, like because they're talking about different translations and different stuff like that. And I've been really into that lately. And so, but one of the things, I know you're going to talk about it, but I want to touch on it. And I'm going to say, I'm going to come at it from a different perspective. I have started unfollowing ladies who expose their body for views and follows. A couple reasons. One, because I'm a married man and I can't intake that. It's not healthy for me. And so I don't think it's a good thing. And so men, if you're listening to this, and ladies, those of you who listen to the podcast, please do not use your body for views. If people can't appreciate you for the skills that you have, then they're not worth your time. And men, be men. I know it's really tempting to follow these ladies who show off their bodies to get views, but it is not healthy for you. It's not healthy for society in a whole. And I really encourage you to rethink that. So every time I see somebody that's dressing scandally, I unfollow. It's just, I have to. I know you're going to touch on that some too, but that's a big thing for me. So what about you? How do you look at stuff?
So I kind of break it down to why I follow people in a few different ways. One, education wise, is it building me up spiritually? Or is it building up my woodworking skills? And I use kind of 2 different perspectives, 2 different examples. So like Drew Fisher, for example, he's a Christian. Matt Outlaw, he's a Christian. Michael Oliver, these are all guys that are Christians that make content, and I follow them because they're brothers in Christ. Their content uplifts me spiritually, and also I do learn woodworking skills from them as well. But then there are people like Keith Johnson, for example. I love Keith Johnson. To my knowledge, he's not a Christian. I don't know. I've never had a conversation with him, so I don't know if he is or isn't. His, woodworking videos don't express anything about faith, so I'm guessing that he's not. But he's a phenomenal woodworker. His content is clean on YouTube. There's no foul language in there, nothing that would take me down or take me away from my relationship with Christ. And I learn a lot of woodworking skills. So number one thing there is it educating me in either A, making me a better woodworker, or B, also making me a stronger Christian. The second reason I follow people is for friendship. And Michael Oliver is a fantastic example. Everett Burge that we had on the podcast, fantastic examples. Like me and Everett call each other on the phone at least once a week. Mark Morgan, maybe not every week, but we call each other almost on a weekly basis or text one another. So the friendship, the camaraderie with other brothers to lift me up. I mean, you don't know, like while I was taking my 40-day fast, some people think that something was wrong, but it wasn't. I just wanted some time to focus on God. But like, it meant the world to me when Mark would shoot me a text or call me and just say, "Hey man, how you doing?" You know, same thing with Everett and Michael and you. And so friendship is the biggest thing for Instagram. I don't obviously use YouTube for friendship. I don't use Facebook at all. So, but there are some people that like you, I don't scroll through reels anymore. I go to their stories to see if they've posted something and what's going on in their shops and lives. Cause I like seeing like whenever it posts something about him and his little kid playing. And when you post something with your kids, it's not just about the woodworking. It's like, I generally care about what's going on in everybody's lives, you know. And same thing, I follow your wife on her stained glass journey. And and then the third part of it would be entertainment. And I use Drew Witt that we had on the podcast. So Drew is Christian, obviously. And Drew, if you're listening to this, I apologize. I'm not saying I don't learn anything from your videos. I do learn stuff, tips and tricks here and there, but that's not why I watch his content. I just think he's funny. And I think he's probably one of the best storytellers on it. So I don't feel like I really get woodworking knowledge. He doesn't do really a lot of build stuff. Every now and then he does. And when he does, his woodworking's phenomenal. But I just think he's funny. I find it very entertaining. And he typically isn't talking about his faith. So it's not like lifting me up spiritually, but it's also not knocking me down spiritually. It's just makes me laugh typically. I get entertained by it. But, you know, and the last part of it would be ministry. So I follow some people that maybe I typically wouldn't have anything in common with, but I feel like God has laid it on my heart to befriend them. Maybe they're somebody that needs somebody to just say, "Hey man, you're doing a good job. Keep going, keep trying. Don't get frustrated with messing up." Because there are some people that, you know, when they're learning a new skill, and I'm talking, this is more very beginner woodworkers, and I'm certainly not an advanced woodworker. I would consider myself intermediate. But at my church in North Carolina, we had a mentoring philosophy that kind of resembled the cross. And so we're to be mentored up. So we need somebody who is further along in our faith or in woodworking, somebody who's further along in woodworking that we can grow and learn from. Then we need our peers that are out beside us. So kind of like me and you. Me and you are both intermediate woodworkers. Neither one of us are Keith Johnson. You know what I mean? But then at the same time, so we've got our buddies that are where we're at, that we're growing with, but then we're to reach down and bring somebody else along. So in our faith, you know, somebody, a new Christian, or in woodworking, somebody who is just learning what a skill saw is, doesn't have a clue of what they're doing, and they just want somebody that'll answer a question and encourage them along. So I call that ministry, and there are some people that I follow. I don't learn anything from them because they're not yet at the level I am. so I'm not learning from them, but I think there's a benefit in following and encouraging some people like that in their journey, so that, because you know how social media is, there's going to be somebody that's going to give them a negative comment. And if you don't balance that out with some positive, encourage them to keep going, they might quit. They might get frustrated because of some dumb thing somebody said. So that's the other reason that I kind of follow people. But from the why I don't follow people, and this, so I'm going to tell you, when I came back off my 40-day fast, before it, I was following 500 and something people, and now I'm following 180, something like that. And so in the beginning, and how that ended up getting to so many, in the beginning, I thought it was courteous when somebody followed me to follow back. Well, some of those people are in other countries. Some of them are, we have nothing in common. It was just, I felt like I should do that, and you don't really need to do that. In the beginning, somebody else had told me following other people would help you get followers. And to me, that is not a reason to follow somebody. That is a selfish reason. You're not following them to take an interest in them. You're following them for a selfish gain. So I could tell you, I eliminated every single, basically the people listening to this podcast are who I'm following, and a handful more, essentially. But it's all brothers and sisters in Christ, or amazing woodworkers that put out quality content that helps me with woodworking. There are some people I unfollowed, and what you touched on, ladies that don't dress appropriately to be online. And there's one individual she is just an absolutely phenomenal scroll saw artist. I mean, just amazing woodworker. But every time she does a reveal, it always, always, always involves shaking her booty. I'm going to call it shaking her booty for the camera, but wearing Daisy Dukes or short shorts, and showing off her body, along with showing off the phenomenal woodworking that she does. And if I want so badly to call her up, I don't have her phone number. I don't, we don't know one another. It's just somebody else. But I would love to call her and say, your work speaks for itself. You don't need to do all that. So now I'm not attracted to her, but the reason I unfollow her is because I started thinking to myself, even though I could learn something from her, she's a better scroll saw artist than I am. I could learn something from that perspective. If my daughter or my wife walked in the room and I was staring at that screen, even though I might be looking at the piece of scroll saw art, are they going to think that I'm looking at the scroll saw art, or they think I'm looking at her body? And it is not worth the doubt coming in. I can learn the scroll saw work from somewhere else. Same thing, but there's a few people that, and I'm like you, if somebody slips up, I slip up and say a bad word every now and then, when I get mad at myself. But if somebody's constantly having to bleep out their bad language, I don't want to listen to bleeps. I want to listen to you talk educated. So I unfollowed them all. And so I just decided that I would rather not have any followers, if that's what it cost me, than I had to follow somebody that doesn't build me up in some way. And so that's my perspective on it. And I'm going to be very meticulous about who I follow or don't follow in the future.
Right. No, and that's something that it's hard. So like I have a similar mentality to you. Like some of these ladies, let's just sit down and have a conversation and let's talk about where your identity comes from. And one of the things I've found in my journey of 25 years as a Christian or whatever I'm at now is that I can't hold people to my standard. And so like I see the world through a biblical lens, and I so want to have that conversation with that young lady and just say, you don't need to be doing this. However, because the lens that she's looking through isn't biblical, she would think that you're a jerk or I'm a jerk. Yeah, right? Because they don't see it that way. They see them using what they have as an advantage to getting views and likes and follows, and that's sad. Because to your point, not only do I not want to be watching that stuff, but I have a daughter and a wife, and my wife's on Instagram, and her follower base is growing because she does phenomenal stained glass work. But if she started dressing scantily on there, you better believe I'd be shutting that down. And she wouldn't. Like, my wife is the most modest person you'll ever meet in your life. But like, that's one of those things that I wouldn't want my daughter out there, when she gets older, doing that kind of stuff, or my wife. And so, I'm not going to follow those who are like that. And unfortunately, that's the world that we live in. Everything is sexualized. Everything is, it's everybody. It's all about them. It's all about me. What can I get? What's about me, 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 me. And so, yeah. Anywho.
But the other thing, there's people that unfollowed that, and if you only send me political crap, now I vote. I voted every single election. I'm gonna vote this year, and I'm gonna complain about the government taking too much taxes every single day of my life. But things that if somebody's sending you content that makes you anxious or makes you fearful, constantly over the last 3-4 presidencies, there's always this thing of, grocery store shelves are going to be bare. You got to stock up now. Get your survival kit. Da 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 da. Well, it still never has happened. Now, I'm not saying it never will. Please, I'm not telling you not be prepared. But if the content causes you fear or anxiety, you don't need to be consuming that stuff. It's, because God is not fear. I mean, and it says, why worry about tomorrow? Today has enough worries for itself. And so, content we should consume should give us peace, joy, happiness, love, that the attributes of Christ. And so that's why I'm going to be very particular about what I consume, but I'm also going to be very particular about what I put out. It's been on my heart that don't waste people's time. I don't want to make a story or a reel just for the sake of, Instagram pushing it out there. If I don't feel like, and I only need one person to grow from it, that's it. So if God tells me to put something out and one person gets touched, then man, it was worth it. But yeah, man. So what you got going on in your shop?
Yeah. I've been doing a little bit out there. I talk about people we follow. It was funny. He was at Workbench Con. I never went up and talked to him. I don't know why I didn't. Workbench Con was a little overwhelming, and then some of that, all these people that you follow. But Matthew Peach, I don't know if you follow him.
I've watched some of his stuff before, but
yeah, he has a second channel more about like outdoor stuff and some woodworking, but kind of like more outdoorsy stuff. And he put out a video last week of him making a turkey call, like a wooden turkey call. And I was like, that looks like a fun project. And so I went out to the shop, I found some scrap pieces, and I started making a turkey call. I'm far from done with it, but I had this really, really gorgeous piece of walnut. And first time I've really used my drill press. And so I bought some Forstner bits. And what I'm finding is that cheap Forstner bits work cheaply. I just bought like Irwin or whatever they are from, are they Irwin or Ryobi maybe from Lowe's or Home Depot. And yeah, they work about as good as they cost, but they got the job done. And so I used Forstner bit to hog out most of the material, then a chisel to start cleaning it up. And I need a way to sand inside of it because the cavity is kind of small. So I ordered their sanding attachment for my oscillating tool. I've got one of those, multi-tool oscillating tool, DeWalt things. And so I ordered a sanding attachment for that so I could put sandpaper on the end of that and use that like inside to sand. So I'm working on that, just kind of a fun little thing. I don't hunt. I just think it's kind of cool. If it works out well and it works, I'm going to give it to a mentor of mine, just like as a, hey, appreciate you. Here you go. So yeah, I've been working on that. And, other than that, I haven't done really anything in the shop. Just been too busy, back to work. Always something going on, just one thing after another. So not too much else happened here, but mowing grass, sharpening blades, and just normal everyday life stuff. How about you?
Mine has not been in the shop other than the only thing I've done in my shop the last week. I told you last week I had a bunch of sanding on all the bee boxes. And so I sanded every beehive I had down. We painted them all. And this week we got 3 new hives of bees put out and bush hogging. And I did finish every wooden handle in my shed now has been sanded down, has Willie's Wood Honey on it. I think I told you I had done one handle. And then after that, every time I touch, dude, it works great. I'm telling you, yes. And when you're out there working with a tool, and nothing drives me crazier. If I touch a piece of wood and I get a splinter. Like I am a magnet for getting splinters. And it drives me crazy to be working outside and get a splinter off the handle. And I'll be honest, I had neglected maintaining some of my wooden handles. So I sanded them all down and put your finish on them. And man, it's like a brand new tool. So they look so nice out there.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, man. I'm telling you, you should probably think about marketing that as like a garden tool maintenance, like make a little small type jar. I don't know how to go about marketing that to garden centers or something like that, but it works great, man. Works really good. But yeah, and then so yesterday I did something very unusual, and we had planned on playing today, but I've got so many used snowboards from my old snowboard, my daughter's old snowboard, friends giving me old snowboards and me hanging on to them. And I was like, these things are taking up too much space. And been looking for a hobby for me and my wife to do together. And they just built some more pickleball courts here at our park. And so I took an old snowboard and went down to play it against sports and traded in and got me and my wife pickleball paddles and balls. So there's a group that gets together there every single day, 6 days a week. It's about 15, 20 people, and it's very popular. So we are going to, and my wife, you don't have to be a super athlete to play pickleball unless you're wanting to play at, the national level or something, but just for fun. And so, I'm kind of excited about that. And so, yeah, tomorrow we're going to go play some pickleball or start learning how. I don't know if you'd call play
Yeah.
it. I don't even know the rules to the game, but
It's like big ping pong, basically.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. And
It's crazy to me that so pickleball has become the thing now. Like
it's
it is
huge.
so popular. And in high school, I don't know about in your high school or like your daughter's high school, or I guess she was homeschooled, but like we would do like different for like one month we would do a certain activity, another month we do one. And so we would always do badminton one, then we do a dodgeball, and we do basketball, and then we do pickleball. And nobody really ever liked pickleball. This is, 15, 20 years ago. Nobody really ever liked pickleball. We had the pickleball court, like we would bring out the nets and play in the gym and stuff. And I don't remember ever liking it. Like we just never really played it, liked it. But fun fact about Will, I was the 2-time reigning badminton champion in my high school. And so we would do badminton tournaments like singles. And here's the thing. So I have a really long reach. And I'm ambidextrous. And so I could stand in the middle of the court. I was really athletic in high school, and and I'm really hand-eye coordinated. So I was just really good at badminton. And it was just something that I always was like, I love playing badminton. And so, I'm the reigning badminton champion when I was in high school.
One thing I say though, like I think pickleball has gotten so popular, but it's mainly among the older generation. And like at the court, there'll be people 50 up to 80 out there playing, but you rarely do you see somebody who's 20 out there playing. It seems to be like a older generation. But my wife's sister and her husband, they started playing. And so the cool thing is when they come over, this will give us all something to do together. And it's good just to be outside and be active.
Yeah.
So.
Have you ever played tennis?
Yeah. See, I grew up playing, I love tennis, but my wife didn't play, and my daughter has never taken to it. And I don't have a racket anymore. I sold it years ago because I didn't have anybody to play with. But the thing about a tennis racket versus like a pickleball is like tennis balls go flat. You got to constantly rebuy them, which I'm sure you can eventually crack the pickleball balls, but they're going to last a long time. But the paddles, man, those things are good. You don't have to retighten strings or anything. It's a solid, polycore paddle with a graphite surface or something. So it should last a long time.
I remember, so I always thought like golf, right, is kind of a sissy sport because it's so easy. Golf is really hard. I golfed in high school. I used to be good at golf. I haven't played in probably a decade.
What was your handicap when you played?
I don't even know. It's been so long. All I know is that I could par the course. I mean, I didn't play like in like competitive, but I could get par. I was a member. So for my senior gift from my mom, she got me a membership to the local. There's a really, really nice 9-hole club. And so she got me a membership to that. And so every day I'd get up early. I'd be on the golf course by 8 a.m. I do a round of golf, and then I go home, shower, and I go to work because I worked in the afternoons after my senior year of high school. And so I was playing almost every day. And I just got really good. And part of it too is when you get to know the course and you know the way the greens go and stuff. I haven't played in a long time. And so I probably would shank it into the woods like 15 times. But yeah, so I used to be pretty into golf there. But yeah, but tennis, oh my goodness, is that hard sport to play. Like if you're out of shape, don't even try to play tennis. I remember trying to play tennis years ago, and I was in shape and very active and stuff. But the amount of running and the strength you have to have in your core to swing that racket, and like even just playing like light, just with, a couple people that don't really play. Wow, it's exhausting.
And when I was going in high school, I was never good at tennis. I was just like a mediocre player. I just enjoyed playing it with my friends. But one of my very best friends, Andrea Bailey, she was a year older than me. She was top tennis player at our school, went to states every year. Dude, she used to just embarrass me on the court. Like I couldn't even return her serve. It was so hard and fast. Like she would just obliterate me on the court and just laugh. Like if I returned the serve, that was a win for me. Like I figured that's victory. But it just amazed me how much power, and she's a female. I mean, like, and then the guys that were top, I couldn't even attempt to play them. But yeah, but it's a fun sport though. The reason we played it so much as kids is because we had a local college in our hometown, and they had courts it was, for the college, but they allowed the public to play on them, and they had lights. And so in the summertime, it's hot in South Carolina. We didn't go out there until like 8:00 at night. And that would be like a Friday night for us. We'd go out to the tennis courts and turn the lights on and play tennis till 10, 11 o'clock at night. And it was free, young kids with no money. And we just got there with a basket full of balls and hit for hours. But
Yep.
But speaking of golf, like I was never any good at it either. I just loved playing. I was about an 18 to 20 handicap when I played regularly. And the best I've ever done, I had one round where I broke 80. I shot a 79 one time, and it was just one of those days. But it was also on a course I played regularly, and, knew where to lay the ball and all. But most of the time I was shooting in the 90s, on a good day, 85, on a bad day, 95, but usually around 90, 92, something like that. But I miss playing golf. I really enjoyed it, but it's just
It's expensive.
Yeah. Man. But I will say this, here we have 3 public courses that are part of the Parks and Rec, and you could go play 9 holes for $10, which is reasonable. I mean, that's still, if you go play 3 times a week, that adds up quickly. And the thing about golf is, if you're going to play, you've got to practice. Yeah, at least go hit range balls, something regularly, and that costs money, man. So that's really why I don't do it.
Yep. My bread and butter in golfing was my chipping game, and so I've never hole in one. I've come really close several times. I've birdied all the time. I've gotten a couple eagles, but my chip game, and so I was pretty powerful off the tee, but I was never really accurate. I could never really put that ball where I wanted it from the tee. So what I would do is I would just smash it and get it as close as I could. And then I could take a sand wedge or a pitching wedge, and I could get it within a foot or two of the hole. I don't know why. I was just always really good at that. And then my putting wasn't the best either. So I counted on getting it close to the hole from the chip. But yeah, our little here in town, little 9-hole course, it's a really nice, well-kept, just small golf course that you can go out and play in a few hours and enjoy it. And so, yeah, I used to play a lot of golf, and I haven't now. I was told at work that we are a golfing company. There's a lot of people that golf, and there's like outings that they're part of, and being management and stuff. And they're like, you need to get some golf clubs. I'm like, but I'm not going to go. I'm not going to go waste time golfing when I have a family at home. It's just not something that I'm that passionate about.
Yep.
And so it's just a personal thing. The other sport that I played that I was pretty good at was bowling. And so I was in a bowling league for years, and I haven't touched a bowling ball since we moved to Tennessee. So it's been 7 years since I bowled. And next Friday at work, our company is sponsoring a thing called Bowl for Kids. It's like a fundraiser thing. And so I'm part of a team. I found my bowling ball in the attic this weekend and got it down. I've got the ball in the bag and the shoes and all the stuff. And so I'm going to go bowling next Friday, and I haven't touched a ball. And like, I'm probably going to throw my back out is all I'm saying, is that you're going to hear from me that weekend on the podcast. And I'm going to be like, yep, I done hurt my back bowling.
The funny thing is like when me and my wife first started dating and got married, we were part of a bowling league for 2 years. We both stunk. We were awful at bowling. But two of our friends asked us. And so we all joined this little league, and it was really a way to say, hey, every Wednesday night, we're not working. We're going to do something fun. It was kind of like our date night. We would go and, bowl and have a beer and, French fries from the bowling alley. And, but I stunk.
Yes, sir.
Man. Oh, every time I watch the kids, I always like, I wish I could put those rubber things in the lanes in my lane.
I got to a point, I was anywhere between a 190 to 200 average. But I tell people this, I bowl with a 16-pound ball, and I count on inertia. Like, I count on the force of that ball. So it's not that I'm like, if I get like a 7-10 split or something, like, yeah, it's over. Like, I'm not good at, but yeah, I was able to get a lot of strikes just because I launch it down there.
Yeah, that's funny. I don't miss bowling, but I do miss golf. And there's two guys that are in my men's group I go to on Thursday morning. I leave a little Bible study. There's 4 of us in there, and 2 of them golf, and they keep telling me, man, you got to start back. But like you talked about with your kids, I quit golfing about 16 years ago, and maybe 17. It was when my daughter was about 3 or 4, and it was the same thing. I felt guilty to go out and spend 3-4 hours playing golf when I had a kid at home I could do something with. And I always hoped that she would take an interest in it, but she just never did. So I quit and I sold my clubs. And so if I go play right now, if I shot 120, I'd probably be happy because I haven't hit a golf ball in 16, 17 years.
Yeah. I had a set of golf clubs that I had built. It wasn't like a nice Callaway or Ping set or anything like that. Our first house in Tennessee that we bought, we were there for like 3.5 years. And then when we bought our second house and moved, I forgot them in the attic of the first house. But I didn't remember until we moved back to Pennsylvania a year ago. And so at that point, like, I couldn't even.
Man, well, somebody's got a nice set of clubs.
Yeah, there's a nice set of clubs if they went up in the attic. But man, it's getting late. On Wednesdays, I get up at 5 a.m. for breakfast with a bunch of guys from church, and we get together and shoot the breeze and talk about the Lord and all kinds of stuff. So
good stuff.
But yeah, I appreciate everybody listening. And until next week, I'm Will from Flat Woodworks.
I'm Tom from Mountain Valley Maker.